In fact, I started reading here about 12 years ago. There used to be a little bitty stage over there. And I remember in those days I used to get all impassioned because it was the Reagan era. And I was all uptight about it. And, you know, there was bombing of Libya, and there was this, you know, even some of your friends were even talking about, hey, that was a pretty cool thing because we just got Gaddafi, we faced him, you just be kind of like sinking inside, and we tried to remind them that, hey, look, basically they just killed the little girl. And I remember I did this thing on the border in San Diego because that's where I came from, and I did this real impassioned thing about, I just got all upset, and I started talking about the border, and the border says this, and the border says that, and I went on and on and on and on and on, and I just kept going with the border says this, and the border says that, and I was going to, show how down I was with the oppressed, and how down I was with the idea of borders being invisible boundaries between people, and how wrong that is. And somebody in the back says, and so I'm going on my line, and the border says, and this guy finishes my line for me, he goes, adios. And it just fucking killed me. But the thing is so that's kind of, that's kind of how it works sometimes. He was right. Let's see. I don't know if this is going to work. Let's see. Just a no way. I won't put you through that. Thank you very much for being kind. That must have been destiny of somebody out there who's downloading me. Well, this is kind of like similar to that experience with the guy giving me adios as I went off on my history on a trip about how enlightened I was. This is another situation. Can you hear? Is it just too noisy? Should I just... Louder! Louder? I don't know if I can do... I can't talk much louder in the mic. Maybe the mics can come up a little bit. Okay. This takes place in Malibu. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. This takes place in Malibu about 1970. About 1973, actually. I had a brief career as being a jock. And maybe I should take my jacket off now. And I was still living off of that. This is sort of a warning for you guys because you're all, most of you a lot younger than I am, and you're probably maybe getting ready to live off of some kind of past trip that you've been through. But so I was in this party. I lived down there, and I was at this party, and there were all these kind of like different people. Do any of you remember Bill Spaceman Lee? He was a pitcher who used to take acid and go out and pitch for, I think it was Boston. He'd have about 7 or 8 great innings, and then when he started laughing uncontrollably or something, the manager would come out and take him off the mound. Anyway, I was at this place, and I was talking to him, and this story here relates to the conversation and where I was at. It's a place I'd like to see all of you avoid if you can. My body was still remembering what it was like to take a baton and lean into a curve with rhythm in the forms of stride that kick clods the size of quarters 12 feet behind me, stinging the eyes of inner city blacks, furious at my white speed, and coming on and coming on and coming on, with the turn lined with faces screaming in ecstasy as I drove on to my improbable lead. A body that could take it and dish it out, a power that made them avert their eyes because they just couldn't understand, a pride that walked with modesty past the stands and murmured my white boy name over and over and over again. But that was 1968. 7 years later, living in the past, thinking I was getting away with it at another party, there was this big league pitcher hanging out with the Hollywood Underground. Everybody knew his name. Everybody talked about his eccentric capacity to drop those squares and go out and retire the side a few times until a laughing fit brought out the manager to show him the direction to the dugout as the standing O filled the stadium. So he stood next to me listening intently because he wanted to know my story. He remembered who I was, and he wanted to know what happened to me. So I explained. I went on. I told him about the war and how I couldn't stand to compete in front of those masses of Americans wanting me to run down their racist white hope dreams for them, and how they wanted me in the big stadium, that big stadium, the Olympic Games, representing apple pie, mom, and the goose step, and how I couldn't keep in step with the mindless lemmings jackbooting down suburbia, and how how I could have done it. Yeah, I mean, it was all in the bag, but the higher moral ground had thin air, and I was just so illuminated up there beyond the clouds, shading those mortals beneath me, how I had a responsibility to reject and to live beyond the definitions of competition, and how I was in it for the art and not for the winning and losing, and so I went on. I rolled another joint. I had more to say. The pitcher smoked it with me, and I went on. He asked me more questions, and I went deeper into my logic. I found new levels of brilliant insight into why I was better than the production of my abilities beyond the crass expression of my God-given talent. And so then I finished. And he looked at me, and he said, "That's so weak." And he walked away.
Adios. Democracy is coming.